McDonald's waitress brings daughter to work. She runs to a Millionaire and says 2 words that shock him. Before we get started, leave a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Let's begin. Jessica Miller's alarm blared at 4:30 a.m., piercing the darkness of her tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Her body ached from yesterday's double shift as she rolled over, silencing the noise before it could wake Taylor. Her 5-year-old daughter lay curled on the pull-out sofa, her small face flushed with an unnatural red glow. "Taylor, sweetie," Jessica whispered, placing her palm against the child's forehead. Her heart sank, burning hot. Jessica hurried to the bathroom cabinet for the children's Tylenol, her mind racing. Mrs. Grayson, their elderly neighbor who usually watched Taylor, was visiting her sister. The daycare wouldn't take a sick child, and Jessica couldn't afford to miss another shift. Mr. Thompson had already given her a final warning last week. "Mommy?" Taylor's voice was paper thin. "I don't feel good." "I know, baby." Jessica helped her swallow the medicine. "Listen, Mommy has to work today. You'll have to come with me, just for today." 30 minutes later, they stepped into the chilly morning darkness, Taylor bundled in a jacket despite the fever, clutching her threadbare stuffed rabbit, Hoppy. The McDonald's where Jessica worked was 8 blocks away, a walk that felt endless with a sick child. "Morning, Jess," called Darlene, the cook, as they entered through the back door. "Oh no, is Taylor sick?" "Babysitter canceled." "I had no choice," Jessica explained, helping Taylor settle in the break room corner with coloring books and a small pillow. "Thompson's gonna flip," Darlene warned. As predicted, Mr. Thompson's face reddened when he spotted Taylor. "Miller, office now." "Sir, I understand your policy about children, but this is an emergency," Jessica pleaded. "She's quiet, she won't be any trouble." "Last time, Miller," he growled. "One peep from her, and you're done." The morning rush kept Jessica running between tables, refilling coffees and taking orders while checking on Taylor every few minutes. The girl lay quietly coloring, her cheeks still feverish despite the medicine. At precisely 11:30 a.m., the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. William Baker walked in, his tailored charcoal suit and quiet confidence immediately setting him apart from the usual lunchtime crowd. Jessica recognized him from newspaper photos. The billionaire CEO of Baker Innovations. As Jessica approached his table with a menu, something extraordinary happened. Taylor, who had been listless all morning, suddenly sat up straight, her eyes wide and alert. Before Jessica could react, the little girl was on her feet wobbling across the restaurant floor. "Taylor, no," Jessica called, but it was too late. Taylor reached William Baker's table and threw her small arms around his waist. The entire restaurant fell silent. Forks froze mid-air. Conversations halted. "You're in Mommy's picture," Taylor whispered, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "The one she keeps in her special box?" William Baker's face drained of color as he stared down at the child, then up at Jessica, who stood frozen in shock. Time seemed to stop as their eyes locked across the restaurant, both equally stunned by the child's words. Neither could possibly know how this moment would change everything. The silence in the restaurant felt like a physical weight pressing down on Jessica's chest. She rushed forward, her face burning with embarrassment as she gently pried Taylor away from William Baker. "I'm so sorry, sir," she stammered, unable to meet his eyes. "She's running a fever. She doesn't know what she's saying." William Baker remained frozen, his gray eyes fixed on Taylor with an intensity that made Jessica uncomfortable. His hand trembled slightly as he set down his water glass. "Her name is Taylor?" he asked, his voice unnaturally quiet. Jessica nodded, bewildered by his reaction. "Taylor, honey, we need to go back to our corner now." "I'm sorry for the interruption, Mr. Baker." Mr. Thompson materialized beside them, his face a mask of professional courtesy that didn't hide his fury from Jessica. "Mr. Baker, please accept our sincerest apologies. Your meal today is complimentary, of course," he said, shooting Jessica a look that clearly communicated, "You're fired." William Baker seemed to barely register the manager's presence. "It's quite all right," he said, his eyes never leaving Taylor's face. Children have wonderful imaginations. But something in his tone suggested he didn't believe this was merely imagination. Taylor was still staring at William, a strange recognition in her eyes, despite the flush of fever on her cheeks. "You have the same watch," she said, pointing to his wrist where an expensive timepiece gleamed. "And your eyes look sad like Mommy's sometimes." Jessica felt a chill run through her that had nothing to do with the restaurant's air conditioning. How could Taylor possibly know about a picture she'd kept hidden for years in a box under her bed? A picture from a newspaper article she'd saved for reasons she couldn't fully explain to herself? "Taylor, that's enough," Jessica whispered, leading her daughter back to the break room. She could feel dozens of eyes following them, curious stares, burning into her back. "But Mommy, it's him," Taylor insisted, her small voice carrying despite Jessica's attempts to quiet her. Once they reached the break room, Jessica knelt before her daughter, checking her forehead. "Still too warm? Sweetie, you need to rest. And we need to be very quiet so Mommy doesn't lose her job, okay?" Taylor nodded solemnly, but her eyes remained bright with certainty. "He's important, Mommy. I just know it." Jessica returned to the dining area, her stomach in knots. To her relief, William Baker was now focused on his phone, seemingly absorbed in business matters. Mr. Thompson gestured sharply for her to approach the counter. "Miller, this is exactly why we have a no-children policy," he hissed. "One more incident and you're done. Understand?" "Yes, sir. I'm sorry." "It won't happen again," Jessica promised, knowing she had no alternatives for Taylor's care. The next hour passed in a blur of orders and forced smiles. Jessica avoided William Baker's table, asking Darlene to deliver his food. When she finally gathered the courage to glance his way, she was startled to find him watching her, a thoughtful expression on his face. By 1 o'clock, William Baker had finished his meal, but showed no signs of leaving. He remained at his table, occasionally typing on his phone but mostly sitting in contemplation. Jessica felt increasingly uneasy under his intermittent gaze. When Taylor emerged from the break room, pale and unsteady, Jessica's heart sank. The medication was wearing off, and her daughter looked worse than before. "Mommy, I don't feel good," Taylor whimpered, leaning against Jessica's legs. Jessica knelt down, alarmed by the heat radiating from Taylor's small body. This wasn't just a normal fever. What if it was something serious? The thought of a hospital. Bill made her stomach clench with anxiety. But Taylor's health came first. "Mr. Thompson," Jessica called, trying to keep her voice steady. "I need to take my daughter to a doctor. Her fever's getting worse." The manager's face hardened. "Miller, we're short-staffed as it is. You leave now. Don't bother coming back." Jessica felt the blood drain from her face. Without this job, they couldn't make rent. Without rent, they'd be homeless. But looking at Taylor's flushed face, she knew she had no choice. "I understand," she said, untying her apron with trembling hands. As she gathered Taylor's things from the break room, fighting back tears, Darlene appeared in the doorway. "Jess, that rich guy is asking for you," she whispered, "and he left something at his table for you." Confused, Jessica returned to the dining area to find William Baker gone. In his place was a generous tip, and beneath it, a business card. She picked it up, reading the embossed text, "William Baker, CEO, Baker Innovations." On the back, handwritten, in precise letters, "Please call me, it's important." Jessica slipped the card into her pocket, unsure what to make of it. Why would a billionaire want to speak with her? "He also paid your register out for the day," Darlene added, eyes wide. "Told Thompson he'd double it if he didn't give you any trouble about leaving." Jessica felt a complex wave of emotions, gratitude, suspicion, and something else she couldn't name. Why would William Baker, a complete stranger, do this for her? Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright as Jessica led Taylor toward the bus stop. They needed to get to the community clinic, though the wait would likely be hours. "Jessica?" She turned to find William Baker standing beside a sleek black car, his driver, holding the door open. "I'd like to help," he said simply. "Your daughter needs medical attention. Please let me take you to my private physician. Jessica instinctively tightened her grip on Taylor's hand. Why would you do that? You don't know us. Something complicated passed across William's face, a mixture of confusion, certainty, and what looked almost like longing. I'm not entirely sure, he admitted, his honesty surprising her. But when your daughter looked at me, he paused, seeming to search for words. I felt as though I should know her. Please let me help. Taylor tugged on Jessica's hand. He's nice, Mommy, and I'm really hot. Jessica hesitated, torn between her instinct to protect Taylor from strangers and the undeniable reality of their situation. No job, a seriously ill child, and limited options. Okay, she finally agreed, her voice barely audible. Thank you. As the car pulled away from the curb, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed an invisible threshold. Something significant had shifted in their world. All because her feverish daughter had recognized a man from a picture Jessica had hidden away years ago. And as Taylor leaned against her, burning with fever, Jessica wondered if this strange, chance encounter might be either their salvation or the beginning of something far more complicated than she could possibly imagine. William Baker's private doctor was nothing like the crowded community clinic Jessica was accustomed to. Dr. Eleanor Chen's office occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming medical building, with views overlooking the city and not another patient in sight. 3.2, Dr. Chen announced, removing the thermometer from Taylor's ear. How long has she had this fever? Since this morning, Jessica replied, watching anxiously as the doctor examined her daughter. Taylor sat quietly on the examination table, her eyes moving curiously between Dr. Chen and William, who stood near, the door maintaining a respectful distance but clearly concerned. She has a significant ear infection, Dr. Chen explained after completing her examination. I'm prescribing antibiotics and something stronger for the fever. I don't have insurance, Jessica admitted quietly. William stepped forward. The bill comes to me, Dr. Chen. Please make sure Taylor gets everything she needs. While the doctor prepared medication, William approached Taylor with a gentle smile. How are you feeling, young lady? Better now, Taylor replied, studying his face with unnerving intensity. Why were you hiding from us? William blinked in surprise. Hiding? I wasn't hiding, Taylor. Mommy looks at your picture and cries sometimes, Taylor said with a child's blunt honesty. Jessica felt her face burn. Taylor, please, she whispered, mortified. Mr. Baker doesn't need to hear this. William's expression was unreadable. It's quite all right. He turned to Taylor. I think you might be confusing me with someone else. Taylor shook her head stubbornly. No, it's you. An uncomfortable silence filled the room until Dr. Chen returned with medication and instructions. Jessica absorbed the information while keeping a wary eye on William, who had retreated again but seemed lost in thought. When they finished, William insisted on driving them home. You'll need to get these prescriptions filled immediately, he said, leaving no room for argument. The drive to Jessica's apartment building was silent, except for Taylor's occasional comments about buildings they passed. Jessica noticed how William listened attentively to each one, responding with genuine interest rather than condescension. When they arrived, William asked his driver to wait while he escorted them upstairs. Jessica hesitated before unlocking her door, acutely aware of the peeling paint and worn carpet in the hallway. Thank you for everything, she said, stopping at her threshold. But I think we should. Jessica, William interrupted gently. I understand your caution, but I'd like to talk once Taylor is settled. There's something unusual happening here. Jessica hesitated, torn between prudence and curiosity. Taylor made the decision for her, reaching out to take William's hand as naturally as if she'd known him forever. Come see my drawings, she invited, pulling him inside. Their apartment felt painfully small with William in it. He seemed too large, too polished for their shabby furniture and second-hand belongings. Yet he showed no judgment, focusing solely on Taylor as she proudly showed him her artwork on the refrigerator. You're very talented, he told her seriously, examining a crayon drawing of a purple-haired princess. Once Taylor had taken her medicine and settled on the couch, with her stuffed rabbit, William turned to Jessica, his expression grave. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly. "The picture your daughter mentioned, may I see it?" Jessica felt a strange tremor run through her. "How do I know I can trust you?" William considered this, then replied, "You don't. But I promise. I'm only trying to understand what's happening here. Your daughter recognized me in a way that shouldn't be possible." Against her better judgment, Jessica retrieved a small box from beneath her bed. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 6 years ago. William accepting a business award, looking younger but undeniably the same man. "I've never shown this to Taylor," she whispered. "Never even mentioned you. I don't understand how she knew." William stared at the photo, then at Taylor, who had fallen asleep on the couch. "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I intend to find out." William sat at Jessica's small kitchen table, turning the newspaper clipping over in his hands. "This is from the Business Journal, 6 years ago." His voice was thoughtful, probing. "Why did you keep it?" Jessica fidgeted with her coffee mug, avoiding his gaze. "I don't really know," she admitted. "I was in college then, taking a business ethics class. Your company was featured as a case study, and you saved this particular article because," she shrugged, uncomfortable with his persistence. "Something about your story interested me, I guess. Self-made millionaire. Innovative thinking." She paused. "Look, I never expected Taylor to recognize you. I've never shown her this picture." William glanced at Taylor, sleeping peacefully on the couch, her fever finally breaking. "Children sometimes have unusual intuitions," he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't satisfied with this explanation. "May I ask about Taylor's father?" The question hung in the air between them. Jessica stiffened. "He's not in the picture. Left before she was born." "I'm sorry," William said, his voice softening. "That must have been difficult." "We manage," Jessica replied curtly. She wasn't about to share the details of Michael's betrayal with a stranger, no matter how generous he'd been. William seemed to sense her walls going up. He handed the clipping back to her and reached for his wallet, extracting a card. "My direct number," he said. "Call me if Taylor's condition changes or if you need anything at all." Jessica took the card reluctantly. "Why are you doing this? Being so helpful to complete strangers?" William's gray eyes met hers with unexpected intensity. "I lost my wife several years ago." She was. He paused, seeming to search for words. "Taylor reminds me of someone. I can't explain it better than that." An awkward silence filled the small apartment until William's phone chimed with a message. He checked it and stood up. "I have a meeting I can't miss," he said, straightening his already immaculate suit. "But I'd like to check on Taylor tomorrow, if that's all right." Before Jessica could formulate a response, Taylor stirred on the couch. "You're leaving?" she asked William, her voice small and disappointed. "Just for now," he assured her with a gentle smile. "I'll come back to see how you're feeling." Taylor nodded as if this were the most natural arrangement in the world. "Promise?" "Promise," William replied, and Jessica noticed how his professional demeanor softened around her daughter. After William left, Jessica sat beside Taylor, stroking her hair. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" "Better," Taylor said, then added with absolute certainty, "He's going to help us, Mommy." "Mr. Baker has been very kind," Jessica acknowledged carefully. "No," Taylor insisted, her eyes suddenly intense despite her illness. "He needs to help us, and we need to help him. He's lost." Jessica felt a chill run through her. "What do you mean, lost?" Taylor frowned, struggling to articulate thoughts too complex for her 5-year-old vocabulary. "He doesn't remember," she finally said before yawning widely. "Remember what, Taylor?" But Taylor had already drifted back to sleep, leaving Jessica with more questions than answers. Later that evening, As Jessica unpacked the groceries William had arranged to be delivered, far nicer brands than she could normally afford, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from William Baker if you know what's good for you and your daughter." Jessica nearly dropped the phone, her hand trembling as she read the message again. Outside her apartment window, she noticed a dark sedan parked across the street, its engine running. Inside, Taylor slept peacefully, unaware that their encounter with William Baker had set something dangerous in motion. Something that would force Jessica to decide how much she trusted this man who had walked into their lives just hours ago. She glanced at William's business card on the counter, then back at the threatening text message. Whatever was happening, they were now part of it. Jessica barely slept that night, startling at every sound outside her apartment window. The dark sedan had disappeared around midnight, but the threatening text message remained on her phone. A digital reminder that someone was watching. Taylor woke fever-free but still weak, her usual energy subdued. "Is Mr. William coming today?" she asked over cereal. "I don't know, sweetie." Jessica weighed her options. She needed to find a new job immediately. The rent was due in 10 days, but she also needed to protect Taylor from whatever danger they'd stumbled into. Her phone rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. "Jessica Miller," a woman's crisp voice greeted her. "This is Vanessa Pierce, Mr. Baker's executive assistant. Mr. Baker asked me to check on Taylor's condition this morning." "She's better, thank you," Jessica replied cautiously. "Excellent. Mr. Baker would like to meet with you today if possible. He can send a car at your convenience." Jessica hesitated. "I'm actually job hunting today. I lost my position yesterday." There was a brief pause. "I understand. Perhaps I could help with that. Baker Innovations has connections with several businesses in the area. Would you be open to some referrals?" The offer was tempting but raised Jessica's suspicions further. Why was William Baker so invested in helping them? "I appreciate the offer," Jessica said carefully, "but I'd prefer to handle it myself." "Of course." Vanessa's tone remained professional. "Regarding the meeting with Mr. Baker, it's rather important. He specifically mentioned it concerns Taylor." Jessica glanced at her daughter, who was watching her conversation with unusual intensity. "All right, this afternoon would work." After arranging details, Jessica knelt beside Taylor. "We're going to see Mr. Baker today." Taylor's face brightened immediately. "I knew he'd come back for us." "He's just helping us, sweetie. Don't get too attached, okay?" Even as she said it, Jessica realized she was talking to herself as much as to Taylor. "But he needs us, Mommy," Taylor insisted. "He's been looking for us for a long time." Before Jessica could question this bizarre statement, her phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "You were warned. Now watch your back." Jessica's blood ran cold. She pulled the curtain shut and checked that the door was locked. An car arrived promptly at 2, a discreet black sedan with a professional driver who introduced himself as Marcus. Jessica noticed he kept one hand near his jacket as they walked to the car, his eyes constantly scanning the street. "Security detail," he explained briefly when he caught her watching. "Mr. Baker's orders. Baker Innovations headquarters occupied. A gleaming skyscraper downtown." Jessica felt underdressed in her simple blouse and jeans as Marcus escorted them through the marble lobby to a private elevator. Taylor, however, showed no intimidation whatsoever. She bounced excitedly beside Jessica, pointing at the modern art installations as if visiting a familiar place. William met them personally when the elevator doors opened on the top floor. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Jessica's annual salary, but his expression was warm as he crouched to Taylor's level. "How are you feeling today?" he asked gently. "Much better," Taylor replied, then added with startling directness, "Have you remembered anything yet?" William looked taken aback. "Remembered?" "Taylor," Jessica admonished softly, embarrassed. "Let's not bother Mr. Baker with silly questions." But William shook his head. "It's not silly. I'd like to understand what she means." He turned back to Taylor. "What should I be remembering?" Taylor frowned in concentration. "The accident, when you got lost." A strange expression crossed William's face. something between shock and recognition. He stood abruptly, color draining from his cheeks. "Please, come into my office," he said, his voice slightly unsteady. Jessica followed, one hand protectively on Taylor's shoulder, increasingly certain they had walked into something far more complex than a simple case of mistaken identity or a child's imagination. "I received another threatening text," she said once they were seated. She showed him her phone. "Someone doesn't want us associating with you." William's expression hardened. "I was afraid of this. It's why I asked you here." He pressed an intercom button. "Noah, please join us." The door opened to admit a tall, serious-looking man in a well-tailored suit. "Jessica, this is Noah James, head of my security team," William explained. "I believe you and Taylor may be in danger because of me, and I want to ensure you're protected." Noah James had the measured movements of someone accustomed to assessing threats at a glance. His eyes swept over Jessica and Taylor, not unkindly but with professional detachment. "The texts came from a burner phone," he explained after examining Jessica's phone. "Untraceable, but the timing suggests inside knowledge of Mr. Baker's schedule." "Inside knowledge?" Jessica repeated. "You mean someone who works for you?" William sighed, running a hand through his immaculate hair. "Or for Charles Blackwell. He's the CEO of Blackwell Enterprises, our chief competitor. We're currently locked in a bidding war over Meridian Tech. And you think he'd threaten a waitress and her 5-year-old daughter over a business deal?" Jessica couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. "Blackwell plays dirty," Noah said flatly. "Always has. And there's something else you should know." He slid a tablet across the desk. On screen was a social media post showing Taylor hugging William at the McDonald's with the caption, "Baker's secret family." Billionaire CEO caught off guard by child claiming to know him. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. "Who would post this?" "Someone. At the restaurant," William replied grimly. "It's received limited attention so far, but Blackwell would have seen it. He might view you as leverage against me." Taylor, who had been quietly coloring with markers William provided, suddenly spoke. "Up. The bad man with the black car." All three adults turned to her. "What black car, sweetheart?" Jessica asked carefully. "The one watching our house," Taylor said matter-of-factly, not looking up from her drawing. "He was there before, when Daddy left." Jessica felt the blood drain from her face. Taylor had been barely a year old when Michael disappeared. She couldn't possibly remember that. William and Noah exchanged glances. "Taylor," William asked gently, "can you tell us more about this bad man?" Taylor shrugged. "He made Daddy go away, and now he's angry because you came back." An uncomfortable silence filled the office. Jessica stared at her daughter, bewildered by her bizarre statements. "I think," Noah said finally, "we should arrange protective surveillance for Ms. Miller," and Taylor immediately. "Agreed," William nodded. "We should also—" The office door swung open without warning. A tall, silver-haired man in an expensive suit strode in, his smile not reaching his cold eyes. "William, I heard you had visitors and thought I'd introduce myself." William's expression hardened. "Charles, this is a private meeting." Jessica instantly knew this was Charles Blackwell. Something about his presence made her instinctively move closer to Taylor. "Forgive the intrusion," Blackwell said, his gaze fixing on Jessica. "I'm Charles Blackwell, and you must be the young lady who's captured William's attention. The resemblance is remarkable, isn't it?" "Resemblance?" Jessica asked, confused. Blackwell's smile widened. "To Angela, of course. William's late wife." Jessica glanced at William, whose jaw had tightened visibly. "That's enough, Charles," he said in a low, dangerous tone. But Blackwell continued, "It's uncanny, really, and the child." His eyes shifted to Taylor, who had stopped drawing to stare at him with unusual intensity. "Well, she's quite special, too, I imagine." "We were just leaving," Noah intervened smoothly, stepping between Blackwell and Jessica. "Of course." Blackwell backed toward the door. Just one thing, William. The Meridian deal. The board votes tomorrow. Would be a shame if they were distracted by personal matters. His eyes flicked meaningfully toward Jessica and Taylor. After he left, Jessica turned to William. Do I really look like your wife? William hesitated, then opened a desk drawer and withdrew a photograph. This is Angela. Jessica gasped. The woman in the photo could have been her sister. The same heart-shaped face, the same warm brown eyes. Even their hair was similar, though Angela's was professionally styled while Jessica's was typically pulled back in a simple ponytail. And Taylor said something about an accident. Jessica pressed, feeling increasingly uneasy. Was there an accident? William's face grew distant. Yes, 6 years ago, Angela was. His voice faltered. She was pregnant when she died. Taylor suddenly appeared at William's side, placing her small hand on his. It's okay, she said softly. I found you again. William stared at the child, a complex emotion crossing his face. Confusion mixed with something that looked almost like recognition. Outside the office windows, dark clouds gathered on the horizon, mirroring the storm that Jessica sensed was about to break over all their lives. The drive back to Jessica's apartment was tense. Noah insisted on escorting them personally, explaining that additional security personnel would maintain surveillance from a distance. We'll be discreet, he assured Jessica. The last thing we want is to draw more attention. Jessica gazed out the window, her mind racing. The resemblance to Angela couldn't be coincidence, could it? And Taylor's bizarre statements. How could her 5-year-old possibly know about things that happened before she was born? You okay, Mommy? Taylor asked, pressing her small hand into Jessica's. Just thinking, sweetie. Jessica forced a smile. When they arrived at the apartment building, Noah performed a perimeter check before allowing them inside. Taylor skipped ahead to their door while Noah taught Jessica how to use the new security app he'd installed on her phone. One press of this button alerts our team immediately, he explained. We'll also install discrete cameras in the hallway tonight. Is all this really necessary? Jessica asked, though the threatening texts suggested it was. Mr. Baker thinks so, Noah replied simply. And I've learned to trust his instincts. Once inside, Jessica found a package propped against their door. A rectangular box wrapped in brown paper with no shipping label. Don't touch it, Noah warned, immediately on alert. He examined it carefully before determining it wasn't dangerous, enough to call the bomb squad. Jessica watched anxiously as he opened it. Inside was a brand new stuffed rabbit, nearly identical to Taylor's beloved Hoppy but pristine instead of worn. Beneath it lay a note. Keep Taylor smiling, stay away from Baker, final warning. Noah photographed everything before bagging it as evidence. This escalates things, he said grimly. Someone knows about Taylor's stuffed animal. They've been watching closely. Jessica felt violated. Who would do this? Most likely Blackwell's people, Noah said. But we'll investigate thoroughly. Taylor, oblivious to the adult's concern, was showing Hoppy her new drawing, a crayon sketch of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall man in a suit, a woman with long hair, and a small girl between them. That's a nice picture, Jessica said, trying to sound normal. Who are they? Us, silly, Taylor replied. You, me, and William. Noah's phone chimed. He checked it and frowned. Mr. Baker wants to speak with you privately, he told Jessica. When you're ready, he's hoping you'll join him for dinner at his home. Jessica hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea, considering these threats. Actually, his residence has state-of-the-art security. You'd both be safer there than here. When Noah left to make arrangements for the evening surveillance, Jessica sat beside Taylor on the couch. Taylor, I need to ask you something important, she began carefully. How do you know William? Why did you say he's been looking for us? Taylor concentrated on her drawing, adding a sun in the corner of the page. I just know, she said with a child's certainty. Like how I know Hoppy gets sad when I leave him alone. But sweetie, you only met William yesterday. Taylor looked up, her eyes suddenly older than her years. No, Mommy. I knew him before, when I was in heaven. Jessica's breath caught. What do you mean, in heaven? Before I came to you, Taylor explained patiently, as if stating the obvious. I was supposed to go to somebody else, but there was an accident, so I waited until I could find him again. A chill ran through Jessica. They'd never discussed concepts like heaven or reincarnation. Where had Taylor gotten such ideas? Her phone rang. William, I understand if you want nothing to do with me, he said without preamble. But I think we need to talk about what's happening. Taylor just told me she knew you in heaven, Jessica replied, her voice shaking. That she was supposed to go to somebody else, but there was an accident. William, what is going on? There was a long silence. Then, 6 years ago, Angela was 8 months pregnant when she died in that car accident. His voice caught. It was a daughter. Jessica sank onto the couch, looking at Taylor, who was humming softly while she colored, oblivious to how her innocent words had just shattered reality for both adults. Come to dinner, William said quietly. Please. I think we need to figure this out together. As Jessica ended the call, she noticed Taylor had added something to her drawing. A fourth figure, smaller than the others, floating above them with what looked like wings. Who's that? Jessica asked, her throat tight. Taylor smiled. That's me before, when I was waiting. William Baker's home was exactly what Jessica had expected. A modern mansion overlooking the city, all clean lines and minimalist luxury. What she hadn't expected was how comfortable Taylor seemed there, immediately exploring as if she knew the place. She's remarkable, William said, watching Taylor examine a sculpture in the foyer. So at ease here. Jessica nodded, unsettled by the entire situation. This is all very strange, William. I know. He led them to a dining room where a private chef had prepared dinner. I've been thinking about what Taylor said, about knowing me in heaven. And? Jessica prompted as they sat down. William hesitated. I don't know what to believe. I'm not particularly religious or spiritual, but there are things happening that I can't explain rationally. He glanced at Taylor, who was arranging her napkin, with unusual precision. The way she recognized me, the things she knows, and your resemblance to Angela. You think Taylor is somehow connected to your unborn daughter? Jessica kept her voice low, though Taylor seemed preoccupied with her glass of apple juice. I don't know what to think, William admitted, but I can't dismiss it either. Jessica watched her daughter, remembering how Taylor had always seemed wise beyond her years, sometimes saying things that made Jessica wonder where such thoughts came from. What about her father? William asked carefully. You said he left. Before she was born? Jessica tensed. She rarely discussed Michael with anyone. Yes, his name was Michael. We met in college. He was charismatic, ambitious. When I got pregnant, he seemed happy at first, but then... She paused, the memory still, painful. He just disappeared one day, left a note saying he couldn't do this and vanished. I'm sorry, William said softly. It was 6 years ago, Jessica replied. We've managed fine without him. Taylor suddenly looked up. He didn't want to leave, she said, matter-of-factly. The bad man made him. Jessica and William exchanged glances. What bad man, Taylor? William asked gently. The one who watches us, the one who works for Mr. Blackwell. Jessica felt a chill. Taylor? How do you know about Mr. Blackwell? Taylor shrugged, returning to her dinner. I just do. The rest of the meal passed with lighter conversation, William asking about Taylor's interests in schooling. Jessica marveled at how naturally they interacted, as if some invisible thread connected them. After dinner, William's housekeeper helped Taylor get settled in the guest room with a movie while the adults retreated to his study. Noah found something, William said, closing the door. He opened his laptop, pulling up a grainy surveillance photo. This was taken outside your apartment building 2 days ago. Jessica leaned closer, her breath catching. The image showed a man in dark clothes watching her building. Do you recognize him? William asked. Jessica shook her head, then froze. Wait. She peered at the man's profile. Something about the set of his shoulders, the angle of his head. It's not possible. What? He looks like. Jessica swallowed hard. He resembles Michael, Taylor's father, but older, different somehow. William's expression darkened. Noah's team is running facial recognition. If there's a connection to Blackwell, we'll find it. Jessica paced the study, trying to process this new information. None of this makes sense. Why would Taylor's father be working for your business rival? Why would Blackwell care about us at all? I don't know, William admitted, but I intend to find out. A soft knock interrupted them. The housekeeper opened the door slightly. Mr. Baker, Taylor is asking for both of you. She says it's important. They found Taylor sitting upright in bed, her expression serious. The bad men are at our apartment, she said without preamble. William immediately called Noah, who confirmed a security breach. Someone had disabled the hallway camera they'd installed and forced Jessica's door. How did you know, Taylor? Jessica asked, trembling. Taylor just looked at her with those wise eyes. Because they're looking for something. Something Daddy hid before he went away. What did he hide? William asked, kneeling beside the bed. Taylor's answer sent a shockwave through both adults. The truth about what happened to you in the accident, Mr. William. The truth about who you really are. The truth about who I really am, William repeated, his face pale. Taylor, what do you mean? Taylor yawned, suddenly looking like a regular tired 5-year-old. You don't remember because they made you forget. Jessica sat on the edge of the bed, her world tilting. Sweetie, how do you know these things? Dreams, Taylor replied simply. And sometimes I just know stuff. William's phone rang, Noah with an update. The intruders are gone. They ransacked the apartment, but it doesn't appear anything was taken. We've secured the location and changed the locks. Thank you, Noah, William replied. Please keep a team there tonight. After tucking Taylor in, Jessica and William returned to his study, both shaken by her statements. I don't understand any of this, Jessica confessed. What accident was Taylor talking about? I thought Angela died in a car crash. William poured himself a drink with unsteady hands. She did. I wasn't with her that day. He took a long sip. But there was another accident, 6 months before that. I was driving home late one night and went off the road. Woke up in the hospital with a concussion and some memory issues. Memory issues? Nothing major. Just gaps from the weeks around the accident. The doctor said it was normal with head trauma. He ran a hand through his hair. But lately I've been having dreams, flashes of places I don't recognize, people I don't know. Jessica considered this. And when did these dreams start? A few months ago. William paused. They intensified after I saw Taylor at the restaurant. Jessica felt a chill. Does Blackwell have anything to do with your accident? I don't see how. We were competitors, but our real rivalry didn't start until after I returned from recovery. William's brow furrowed. There's something else. The resemblance between you and Angela. I never mentioned it to anyone. It was too painful, but Charles recognized it immediately. Meaning he must have been watching us, Jessica concluded, or knew something I don't. William set down his glass. The thing is, Angela and I struggled with fertility issues for years. When she finally got pregnant, it seemed like a miracle. Jessica hesitated before asking, William, when exactly was your accident? December 6th, 6 years ago. She felt her blood run cold. That's the exact day Michael disappeared. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Jessica, William said carefully, I need to ask you something personal. Do you have a photo of Michael? She nodded, pulling out her phone and scrolling through old images. This was us in college, she said, showing him a picture of her younger self with a handsome man, his arm around her shoulders. William stared at the image, his expression unreadable. I don't recognize him, but... He trailed off. But what? This sounds crazy, but I've had dreams where I see myself in a mirror and the reflection isn't me. It's someone else. He took a steadying breath. I need to make some calls. There's a specialist, Dr. Elliot, who helped after my accident. He might have insights. Jessica's phone chimed with a text from Noah. Found something in your apartment you should see. Coming to the house now. 20 minutes later, Noah arrived carrying a sealed evidence bag containing a small notebook. This was hidden in a sealed plastic bag inside the air vent in Taylor's room, he explained. Whoever broke in was looking for it but didn't find it. Jessica stared at the notebook. I've never seen this before. Noah carefully opened the bag and extracted the notebook, handing it to Jessica. The first page contained a single line in handwriting. She immediately recognized as Michael's. If you're reading this, I failed to come back for you. Find William Baker. He's the key to everything. Jessica's hands trembled as she turned to the next page, which contained a photograph that made her gasp. It showed William Baker, but younger, with slightly different features, standing beside Charles Blackwell. Both men were smiling at the camera. Written on the back in Michael's handwriting was a single question. Who is William Baker really? And what did Blackwell do to him? Jessica stared at the photograph, her heart pounding. This makes no sense. How could Michael have known you? William studied the image with equal confusion. That's definitely me, but I don't recall ever being this friendly with Blackwell. And my face looks different. Noah leaned in. Facial reconstruction after your accident, sir? Minor procedures only, William replied. Nothing that would change my appearance this dramatically. Jessica turned pages in the notebook, finding mostly blank sheets until halfway through, where Michael had written dates and locations, brief entries that read like surveillance notes. October 2nd, followed subject to Meridian Labs. October 15th, B met with unknown contact at Harbor Hotel. He was tracking someone, Noah observed. Blackwell, Jessica said. Michael was investigating Blackwell. She continued reading until she reached a passage that made her breath catch. November 28th. Confirmed subject is not WB. Plastic surgery, voice training. Real WB location unknown. Must warn J before. The entry ended abruptly. William took the notebook, reading the passage twice. This suggests that you might not be the real William Baker, Noah finished, his professional composure momentarily slipping. Jessica shook her head, trying to process this bombshell. But that's impossible. You run a billion-dollar company. People would notice if you were suddenly a different person. Not if the change happened during my recovery period, William said quietly. After the accident, I was out of the public eye for nearly 3 months. Noah was already typing on his phone. I'm contacting a trusted colleague to run deeper. Background checks, we need to verify hospital records, recovery facility documentation, everything. Jessica thought of Taylor sleeping upstairs, blissfully unaware of these shocking revelations. If Michael was investigating Blackwell and discovered something this explosive, then Blackwell had reason to make him disappear, William concluded grimly. We need proof, Noah said. Something more substantial than a notebook that could have been written by anyone. Jessica flipped through the remaining pages and found a small key taped to the inside back cover. This might be important. William examined it. Safety deposit box, most likely. But which bank? Jessica checked the final pages, finding a business card for First National Bank tucked in the binding. This could be it. Noah took the card. I'll have someone check this out discreetly first thing tomorrow. There's something else we need to consider, William said, his voice unnaturally calm. If I'm not really William Baker, then who am I? An uncomfortable silence filled the room as the implications hung in the air. Jessica found herself studying William's face, searching for similarities to Michael. The coloring was different, the bone structure altered, but something about the eyes. We should get some rest, Noah finally suggested. I'll have the team work through the night on this. The bank opens at 9 tomorrow. After Noah left, Jessica and William sat in silent contemplation. I should check on Taylor, Jessica said eventually, needing a moment to process everything. She found her daughter sleeping peacefully, Hoppy clutched to her chest. How could this innocent child know so much about things she couldn't possibly understand? When Jessica returned to the study, William was staring out the window at the city lights. In my dreams, he said without turning, I'm someone else. I'm in a small apartment, with a woman I love. We're happy, but worried about something. He faced Jessica. Last night I dreamed about a stuffed rabbit, just like Taylor's. Jessica felt her knees weaken. She steadied herself against the doorframe. William, what if Michael didn't abandon you? He said, his voice barely above a whisper. What if he became someone else? Someone who couldn't remember you? The question hung between them like a physical presence. Jessica thought of all the little moments. William's instant connection with Taylor, the way he sometimes tilted his head exactly as Michael used to when listening intently. The inexplicable trust she felt toward him despite their brief acquaintance. If that's true, Jessica said carefully, then Blackwell didn't just threaten your business. He stole your entire life. Before William could respond, they heard a small voice from the hallway. Daddy used to call me Sunshine, Taylor said, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Only he knew that name. William went very still. Taylor, how did you know to come downstairs right now? She yawned. The angel told me it was time for you to remember. Sunshine, William repeated softly, the word triggering something deep within him. For a moment he seemed lost in thought, his eyes unfocused. Jessica knelt beside Taylor. Sweetie, what angel are you talking about? The lady angel who watches over us, Taylor said with childlike certainty. She has pretty hair like yours, Mommy, but she glows. She's the one who helped me find Daddy again. William and Jessica exchanged glances. The description sounded eerily like Angela. Taylor, William asked carefully, has this angel told you other things? Taylor nodded. She said the bad man put Daddy to sleep and made him forget us. But she helped me remember so I could help him remember too. She rubbed her eyes sleepily. Can I have some water? After Jessica took Taylor back to bed, William sat motionless in his study, the word sunshine echoing in his mind. Something about it resonated like a distant bell heard across water. When Jessica returned, she found him looking through his phone. My calendar, he explained. I'm searching for anything unusual during those missing months. He paused on an entry. Here, a series of appointments with a Dr. Isaacs. No specialty listed, no contact information. Could be the doctor who performed your surgeries after the accident, Jessica suggested. Or something else entirely. William's jaw tightened. First the bank tomorrow, then we find this Dr. Isaacs. Morning came too quickly. Jessica barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities. Could William really be Michael? The man who had walked out on her and their unborn child? Or was something more sinister at play? Noah arrived at 7, accompanied by a woman he introduced as Dr. Lauren Elliott, a neurologist specializing in memory disorders. Mr. Baker called me last night, she explained to Jessica. He's been my patient since his accident. And you never suspected anything unusual about his case? Jessica asked. Dr. Elliott hesitated. There were inconsistencies, gaps in the medical reports, but nothing conclusive. They gathered in William's home office while Taylor remained upstairs with the housekeeper. Dr. Elliott examined the notebook, her expression grave. If what this suggests is true, memory manipulation, identity replacement, it would require sophisticated techniques. Drugs, hypnosis, possibly even targeted electrical stimulation of specific brain regions. Is that even possible? Jessica asked. Theoretically, yes. Ethically and legally, absolutely not. Dr. Elliott turned to William. The dreams you've been having could be your original memories attempting to surface. The bank opens in an hour. Noah interrupted. We should move. They left Taylor in the care of Noah's most trusted security officer, and took separate vehicles to First National Bank. Jessica rode with William, an uncomfortable silence between them. "If I am Michael," he finally said, "that means I abandoned you and our unborn child." "We don't know what happened," Jessica replied. "If Blackwell really did this to you, then you didn't abandon us. You were taken." At the bank, they presented the key and Michael's ID, which Noah had retrieved from Jessica's apartment. The manager led them to a private room where the safety deposit box was brought in. William opened it with hands that trembled slightly. Inside lay a sealed envelope, a flash drive, and a small recording device. Jessica recognized Michael's handwriting on the envelope. For Jessica and Taylor. Evidence against Blackwell. William opened the envelope first, extracting several documents, medical reports, surveillance photos of Blackwell, with various doctors, and a handwritten timeline. But it was the final item that caused William to freeze, a DNA test comparing two samples labeled William Baker, original, and Subject X, post-procedure. "According to this," William said, his voice hollow, "Subject X's DNA doesn't match the original William Baker's." Jessica reached for the flash drive, plugging it into the laptop Noah had brought. It contained dozens of video files. She clicked on one titled Original Interview. The screen showed a younger William Baker, similar to the man beside her but with subtle differences, speaking directly to the camera. "My name is William Baker. If you're watching this, Charles Blackwell has succeeded in replacing me with his substitute. Find Michael Reynolds. He knows everything." William stared at the screen, his face pale. "Michael Reynolds," he whispered. Jessica's heart stopped. "That was your name," she said softly. "Michael Reynolds." In that moment, Taylor's words echoed in her mind. "I found you again." The drive back to William's, or rather Michael's mansion, was silent, each person lost in the implications of what they'd discovered. The recording device from the safety deposit box contained audio files documenting conversations between Blackwell and various medical professionals, discussing the procedure and memory recalibration. Noah had immediately sent copies of everything to his most trusted team members for safekeeping. "Blackwell has resources," he explained. "We can't risk losing this evidence." Jessica kept glancing at William, seeing him through new eyes. This man who had been helping them, who had felt an inexplicable connection to Taylor, was actually her daughter's father. A man whose entire identity had been stolen and rewritten. "I don't know who I am anymore," Michael said quietly as they approached the mansion gates. "Everything I thought I knew about myself is a lie." Dr. Elliot, who had joined them at the bank, spoke up from the back seat. "Your core self remains intact. The memories may have been manipulated, but your fundamental personality traits, your values, those are harder to erase." Jessica thought about how naturally William had bonded with Taylor from the beginning. Some connections ran deeper than memory. As they pulled up to the mansion, Noah's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened. "Sir," he said urgently as he ended the call, "Blackwell has called an emergency board meeting at Baker Innovations. He's presenting evidence that you're mentally unstable and seeking to have you removed as CEO." "On what grounds?" William demanded. "Apparently he has photographs of you with Jessica and Taylor, medical reports suggesting psychiatric issues, and testimony from a doctor claiming you've been experiencing delusions." Jessica's stomach dropped. "He's moving against you now because he knows we found the evidence." They rushed inside to find Taylor and the security officer playing a board game in the living room, both thankfully safe. Taylor looked up, immediately sensing the tension. "The bad man is coming, isn't he?" she asked. Before anyone could respond, William's phone chimed with an incoming video call. "Blackwell." William hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. "William, my friend." Blackwell's smug voice filled the room. "Or should I say, Michael, I see you've been quite busy today." "It's over, Blackwell," William replied. "We have the evidence. DNA tests, your conversations with the doctors, everything." Blackwell chuckled. "Impressive. But it changes nothing. The board meeting starts in an hour. Even if you race there with your so-called evidence, Who would believe such an outlandish story? That I somehow replaced the real William Baker with a look-alike? You'll sound deranged, which conveniently supports my case. Why did you do this? Jessica demanded. Where is the real William Baker? Ah, Jessica, still as fiery as I remember. The real William Baker was becoming problematic. His research into neural interfaces was revolutionary, but he refused to weaponize it. Such a waste of potential. So you replaced him with Michael, a man who had the intelligence but could be controlled through memory manipulation. Dr. Elliot said, precisely. Michael was investigating me for a story, a talented journalist with a scientific background. Perfect raw material. And to have him run the company believing he was Baker. Poetic. William's face hardened. And what about Jessica and our child? You made me abandon them. Collateral damage, Blackwell dismissed. Though in fairness, we did try to erase those memories completely. Seems some things run too deep. Jessica felt sick. This man had casually destroyed 3 lives, 4, counting the real William Baker, for corporate gain. You won't get away with this, William said, his voice deadly calm. I already have. Blackwell's tone was triumphant. But I'm not unreasonable. Resign now, transfer your controlling shares to me, and I'll leave your little family alone. Refuse, and I'll destroy not just your career, but Jessica and that remarkable child of yours. The call ended abruptly, leaving them in stunned silence. He's bluffing, Noah said. He wouldn't dare hurt a child. He replaced a man's entire identity, Jessica countered. I don't think there's anything he wouldn't dare. William knelt beside Taylor, who had been quietly listening to everything. Taylor, he said gently, do you remember me at all? From before? Taylor placed her small hand against his cheek. You used to read me stories before I was born, she said simply. You promised you'd come back, and you did. William, or Michael, stood abruptly, a new determination hardening his features. I'm not giving in to Blackwell's demands. But the board meeting, Noah began. Yes, we'll attend, William interrupted, but not to surrender. We're going to expose Blackwell today, with every piece of evidence we have. Dr. Elliot looked concerned. This is a lot to process psychologically. You've just discovered your entire life for the past 6 years has been built on false memories. Are you sure you're ready to face this publicly? William looked at Taylor, then at Jessica. I've lost 6 years with my family because of Blackwell. I won't lose another day. Jessica felt a surge of emotion. Fear mixed with hope, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name. This man standing before her was both a stranger and the father of her child, both William Baker and Michael Reynolds. What's your plan? She asked. We present everything, the DNA tests, the recordings, the timeline, not just to the board, but to law enforcement. William turned to Noah. Contact the FBI, corporate espionage, kidnapping, identity theft, medical malpractice. Blackwell has committed enough federal crimes to put him away for decades. Noah nodded, already dialing. I'm coming with you, Jessica said firmly. William shook his head. Blackwell threatened you and Taylor. I can't risk. We're stronger together, Jessica interrupted. Taylor recognized you when nobody else did, not even yourself. There's a reason for that. She took a deep breath. Besides, I have 6 years of Michael Reynolds' memories that you don't have access to. I can help establish your real identity. Their eyes locked, an unspoken current passing between them. For a moment, Jessica caught a glimpse of Michael in William's expression. The same intensity, the same determination. All right, he conceded. But Taylor stays here with maximum security. They worked rapidly, compiling the evidence while Noah arranged for FBI agents to meet them at Baker Innovations. Dr. Elliot prepared a concise medical assessment explaining how memory manipulation could have been achieved. As they prepared to leave, Taylor suddenly appeared in the doorway, clutching. Hoppy, you need to take this, she said, holding out a small object. a tarnished silver compass that Jessica had never seen before. William took it, his expression changing instantly. "This was my father's," he whispered. "I carried it everywhere. But how did you—" "The angel showed me where to find it," Taylor replied. "She said it would help you remember the way home." William's hands trembled as he ran his thumb over the compass's worn surface. "I remember hiding this, somewhere in the apartment, a loose floorboard under the bed." Jessica gasped. "There is a loose board there. I found it years ago but never looked underneath." "Take it with you," Taylor insisted. "It's proof." William knelt to Taylor's level. "Thank you, sunshine," he said softly, and in that moment, his voice sounded exactly like Michael's. Taylor hugged him tightly. "I knew you'd find us again, Daddy." The drive to Baker Innovations headquarters was tense. William clutched the compass in one hand, occasionally closing his eyes as fragments of memory surfaced. "I remember investigating Blackwell," he said suddenly. "He was funding experimental brain research off the books. I had a source inside the lab who said they were developing ways to alter memory, not just suppress it, but replace it entirely." "That's how you connected to the real William Baker," Jessica realized. "He must have reached out to you about Blackwell's interest in his neural interface technology." "Yes," William said slowly, memories crystallizing. "He knew Blackwell wanted to weaponize his work. He was gathering evidence just like I was." As Baker Innovations came into view, its glass tower gleaming in the afternoon sun, William took Jessica's hand. "I don't know what will happen in there," he said quietly. "But I want you to know that I'm starting to remember feelings, not just facts, feelings about you and Taylor." Jessica squeezed his hand, her throat tight with emotion. "We'll get through this. Together." Noah's phone rang as they pulled into the parking garage. "The FBI agents are in position," he reported. "And sir, Blackwell just arrived with Dr. Isaacs, the doctor who performed your procedures." William's jaw tightened. "Perfect. All the key players in one place." As they stepped out of the car, Jessica spotted a familiar face watching them from the shadows, the same man she'd seen in Noah's surveillance photo. Her breath caught. "Michael," she whispered. "That man. I think it's the real William Baker." "The real William Baker," William repeated, scanning the parking garage. The figure Jessica had spotted melted further into the shadows. Noah motioned to two of his security team. "Follow him. Don't engage. Just track his movements." They entered the building through a private elevator that led directly to the executive floor. With each passing floor, William seemed to stand taller, his dual identities coalescing into something stronger than either alone. "The boardroom is just ahead," he said as the doors opened. "Blackwell will have already started poisoning the board, against me." "We have the truth on our side," Jessica reminded him, squeezing his hand one last time before letting go. The hallway outside the boardroom was lined with security personnel, some Noah's men, others clearly reporting to Blackwell. FBI agents in suits stood at strategic points, their presence adding gravity to the situation. William paused before the double doors, taking a deep breath. "Ready?" Jessica nodded, and they entered. 12 board members sat around a massive table, with Blackwell standing at the head mid-presentation. Behind him, charts displayed what appeared to be psychological evaluations. A thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, presumably Dr. Isaacs, stood nervously beside a projector. Conversation ceased instantly as William strode in, Jessica and their entourage following. "William." Blackwell recovered quickly, his smile not reaching his eyes. "We were just discussing your mental state. I'm concerned about your fitness to lead this company." "I'm sure you are, Charles," William replied coolly. "Especially since I'm not actually William Baker." Murmurs erupted around the table. Blackwell's smile faltered. "As you can see," Blackwell gestured to the board members, "delusions of identity confusion. Exactly what Dr. Isaacs has diagnosed." William stepped forward, placing a flash drive on the table. "Before anyone jumps to conclusions, I suggest we review some evidence. This contains DNA tests proving that I am not the original William Baker. along with recordings of Mr. Blackwell discussing the procedure to replace him with me, a journalist named Michael Reynolds, who was investigating Blackwell's illegal activities. The board chairman, a distinguished older woman named Helen Winters, frowned. "These are serious accusations, William. Or should I say, Mr. Reynolds?" "You can still call me William," he replied. "I've been him longer than I've been aware of being Michael. But yes, these are extremely serious accusations, which is why I've invited the FBI to join us." Two agents stepped forward, introducing themselves. "We've reviewed preliminary evidence and believe there's sufficient cause to investigate allegations of identity theft, kidnapping, and conspiracy," the lead agent stated. Blackwell's composure cracked. "This is preposterous. You can't possibly believe—" "Play the recordings," William instructed Noah, who connected the flash drive to the room's presentation system. Blackwell's voice filled the room. "The procedure was a success. Reynolds believes he's Baker now. All traces of his former identity have been suppressed." Another voice, Dr. Isaacs, responded, "But suppression isn't permanent. Memories this fundamental could resurface, especially with the right triggers." The board members' expressions shifted from skepticism to horror as the recording continued, detailing how Michael Reynolds had been selected because of his physical similarities to Baker and his scientific aptitude. Dr. Isaacs, visibly trembling now, backed toward the door. "I was following orders," he stammered. "Blackwell threatened my family." "You're both insane," Blackwell snarled, but his confident facade was crumbling. Helen Winters stood. "I think we've heard enough to warrant a full investigation. I move to temporarily suspend both Mr. Blackwell and—" She hesitated, looking at William. "The current CEO until this matter is resolved legally." "Seconded," another board member quickly added. As the board formally voted, the doors burst open. Noah's security team entered, escorting the man from the parking garage, thin, haunted-looking but with unmistakable intelligence in his eyes. "William Baker," the man said, his voice hoarse from disuse. "The real William Baker. I've been watching, waiting for the right moment." He turned to Blackwell, who had gone deathly pale. "You kept me alive because you needed my ongoing research, but you never thought I'd escape." The room erupted in chaos. FBI agents moved to detain both Blackwell and Dr. Isaacs, reading them their rights. Board members clustered around the real William Baker, asking questions he seemed too overwhelmed to answer. In the midst of the commotion, Michael, found Jessica's hand again, their fingers intertwining. "It's over," he whispered. Jessica nodded, tears threatening. "But it's also just beginning." 3 months later, Jessica sat on a park bench watching Taylor chase butterflies through a field of wildflowers. The autumn sun cast a golden glow, warming. Her face as a familiar figure approached and sat beside her. "She has so much energy," Michael said, smiling as Taylor spotted him and waved excitedly. He was Michael now, fully and completely. In the weeks following Blackwell's arrest, Dr. Elliott had helped him integrate his recovered memories, finding a balance between the man he'd been and the man he'd become. "How was your meeting with the real William?" Jessica asked, leaning slightly against his shoulder. "Productive. He's officially taking back his name and position as head of research, but he wants me to remain as CEO." Michael shook his head in amazement. "He says I've done more with the company than he ever could have." The aftermath of the scandal had been chaotic but ultimately healing. Blackwell and his conspirators faced multiple federal charges. The real William Baker had emerged from hiding, his years of captivity leaving him changed but resilient. And most importantly, Taylor had her father back, though she insisted she'd never really lost him. "Taylor knew," Jessica said softly. "Somehow she always knew who you were." Michael nodded, watching his daughter twirl in the sunlight. "Dr. Elliott says some connections transcend conscious memory. And then there's Taylor's angel." They'd never fully addressed the spiritual aspects of Taylor's knowledge. Her references to Angela and heaven remained a gentle mystery they'd come to accept rather than explain. "The contractors finished the renovations on the house," Michael said, changing the subject. "It's ready whenever you and Taylor are." Jessica had finally agreed to move into Michael's home, or rather, their new home together, as they'd redesigned it to suit all three of them. Her apartment held too many painful memories, and Taylor had already claimed her princess room in the new place. This weekend, Jessica decided, it's time. Michael took her hand, running his thumb over the simple engagement ring he'd given her a month ago. They were taking things slowly, rebuilding their relationship while honoring both what they'd had before and what they'd discovered since. I found something yesterday, he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, yellowed envelope. It was in my old office files, misfiled from 6 years ago. Jessica opened it carefully. Inside was a sonogram, Taylor's sonogram from before Michael had disappeared. I remember now, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I had it with me that day, the day Blackwell's men took me. I was on my way to meet my editor with the evidence against Blackwell, but I'd stopped to look at this. Our baby girl. Tears welled in Jessica's eyes as she traced the fuzzy outline of Taylor in the womb. You never abandoned us, she whispered. Not by choice. Never, he affirmed. And I never will again. Taylor ran up to them, breathless and beaming. Daddy, I found a special rock for your collection. She pressed a smooth, heart-shaped stone into Michael's palm. It's perfect, he said, pulling her into a gentle hug. Thank you, sunshine. As they walked back toward the car, Taylor skipping ahead, Michael stopped Jessica with a gentle touch. There's one more thing, he said. The real William told me something interesting yesterday. He said Angela had visited a fertility specialist before they married. They collected donor eggs because she couldn't produce viable ones. Jessica frowned, puzzled. Why are you telling me this? Because, Michael said softly. He showed me the donor profile. The woman was a match for your blood type, your general physical description. She even studied business ethics in college. That's just a coincidence, Jessica began, but the implication slowly dawned on her. Maybe, Michael agreed. Or maybe there's more connecting all of us than we understand. Taylor called to them from up ahead, impatient to get home. As they joined hands and walked toward their daughter, Jessica thought about all the impossible coincidences that had brought them to this moment. Taylor recognizing Michael despite his altered appearance, Angela's resemblance to Jessica, the strange dreams and memories that had surfaced against all odds. Some mysteries weren't meant to be solved, she decided. Some connections ran deeper than science could explain. What mattered was that a little girl had recognized her father across an impossible divide. A man had found his way back to his true identity, and a family once torn apart by evil was whole again. Let's go home, Jessica said, squeezing Michael's hand. All of us together. And as Taylor ran into both their arms, Jessica knew that whatever forces had guided them, whether angels or simply love that refused to be forgotten, had finally brought them exactly where they belonged.